Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. Thousands are once again fleeing their homes, and today the Manitoba government declared another province-wide state of emergency due to wildfires. This is the second one in less than 2 months. The Canadian Armed Forces are also once again flying people out of some communities. At a press conference on Thursday, Premier Wab Kinew said the declaration was called due to intensifying wildfires and the mandatory evacuation of 9 communities. 105 wildfires are currently active. There have been 261 wildfires in Manitoba to date, more than the average of 197. Around 6,000 people were alerted to evacuate in the past 24 hours from the town of Snow Lake and Garden Hill First Nation. Estimated total evacuees are now around 12,600. There are currently 1,000 hotel rooms booked for elders and people with high medical needs. But the vast majority of evacuees are expected to be put up in congregate shelters. Officials say this is the worst year for wildfires in the province's 30-year electronic record.
The area burned as of July 8th was just over 1 million hectares. The 20-year average to that date would only be 94,000 hectares. So what we're looking at is somewhere in the neighborhood of nearly 11 times the 20-year average for hectares burned. This is the worst year in our 30-year electronic record. So we have records going back to 1995, and the area burned is the worst that we've seen in all of those 30 years. The second worst was in 2013 when we burned just over 720,000 hectares.
An update now on a story we first brought you last month about a dog that was shot and killed by a police officer on a First Nation in southern Manitoba. In June, an officer with the Manitoba First Nations Police Service went to a home on the Swan Lake First Nation, 150 kilometers southwest of Winnipeg. He was looking for a man at the house, but was told by the man's girlfriend to come back with a warrant. While the officer was leaving, the family dog, a Rottweiler, bit him. The officer returned with a rifle and shot the dog, killing it. This week, the police service called in the Independent Investigation Unit of Manitoba, or IIU, to investigate the incident. Witnesses are being asked to contact the IIU at 844-667-6060. To Montreal now, where the city's public transit system has reintroduced a measure that prevents loitering in the metro system. The policy specifically impacts homeless people who are sheltering in the metro. Our reporter Savannah Craig visited a homeless shelter to learn how the ban affects the shelter's services.
Let's try it. You know, I'm not sure that I'd want to lay here too long. Oh God. Yeah, no, not for sleeping.
This bench is just one example of efforts made by the City of Montreal to discourage the unhoused from sleeping in public. One example of many in the city.
What we have here is a large, tall new ventilation system that was just installed this year. And this used to be a vent that blew heat right down onto the ground, and a person could, even in the winter, just by sitting under the vent, stay warm.
David Chapman is the executive director of Resilience Montreal, a homeless shelter with a large number of clientele who are Indigenous, some even second-generation residential school survivors.
This is an example of some of the measures that are put in place to just sort of steer the unhoused away.
This is not only seen in redesigning public spaces, but policies too. Montreal's transit system, known as the SDM, reintroduced a move-along order on June 18th. This order gives special SDM constables additional power to respond and remove those who are occupying the metro and not using it to commute. The order was first introduced in March of this year, lasting 7 weeks. Chapman had this to say to APTN News about it back then.
So what's going to happen? We push people out of the metros. Well, that solves the problem for the STM officials, but where do the people then go?
Chapman said the move-along order was bringing out larger crowds of clientele to Resilience, forcing some to sleep in hallways. Now he's seeing these effects again. APTN News reached out to the STM, but it did not grant us an interview. The STM says the justification for bringing back the move-along order is that safety improved during the first implementation of this order, for both riders and workers. In a press release announcing the reintroduction of these measures, STM Board of Directors Chair Eric Allen Caldwell stated, "The real solution to the issue of homeless people sheltering in metros is a tangible and sustainable response to help the vulnerable, including more funding for resources all year long." More funding for resources is a sentiment Chapman agrees with. But he says much of the focus from governments has been on housing initiatives, instead of balancing this with support for emergency services.
Organizations that try to operate and offer a safe place to people while they're working it out can't find funding, because the message that governments are getting is stick the money directly into housing first programs.
He says homeless support centers should be available in every neighborhood in Montreal.
If we keep this up, we won't be ending homelessness, but we might be ending homeless people.
Savannah Craig, APTN National News, Montreal.
Just in time for July 4th, the Trump administration celebrated Independence Day by signing a highly controversial tax cut bill into law. That bill gives the legal green light to open a highly sensitive area of Alaska's Arctic to oil and gas drilling. Sarah Connors tells us Indigenous groups and conservationists are weighing in on the so-called Big Beautiful Bill.
It's what U.S. President Donald Trump proudly calls his Big Beautiful Bill. But for those fighting to protect the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge in Northeast Alaska, there's nothing beautiful about it.
We don't take this lightly at all. This is our way of life.
Along with cuts to Medicaid and food assistance, the federal budget bill requires 4 oil and gas lease sales within the refuge's coastal plain over the next 10 years. The 1.5 million acre plain serves as nursery grounds for the porcupine caribou herd, an important food source for the Gwich'in in Alaska and northern Canada.
That's a sacred place where life begins. No amount of money can justify what is taking place.
But just because lease sales within the refuge can legally go ahead, that doesn't mean anyone's buying. 2 prior lease sales mandated under the Trump administration received virtually no interest from oil and gas companies. The only company currently holding leases is an Alaskan state corporation, which owns 7 tracts of land covering more than 300,000 acres. This conservation group says development of those leases, or any others, will be an uphill battle.
That company does not have the ability to develop those leases on its own. Any lease sales that happen outside of that are going to be leases that are outside of the zone of interest for any oil companies.
But for the Inupiat living in the North Slope borough, oil and gas development on their homelands comes with economic benefits. Tax revenue from infrastructure on the North Slope is reimbursed back into the borough's 8 communities, helping pay for things like roads, schools, and hospitals. This organization advocating for the Inupiats' interests believes responsible oil and gas development is possible.
The last few years, it seems like we're finally making progress with respect to this bill being signed.
As for the Gwich'in, the fight to protect the sacred place where life begins is far from over.
This is our way of life, our traditional way of life, and we will do whatever we can to protect our land.
Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
Coming up after the break, our Truth in Politics panel will be here. But first, here's a look at a story our Rachel May is working on with families from across Saskatchewan who joined the Morin family in North Battleford to remind the public they aren't giving up on hope for their missing loved ones.
It's been 7 years since Ashley Morin was last seen by her family in North Battleford, Saskatchewan. Her sister Janine says this walk is a reminder that Ashley is loved and will always have the support of her community. The family of Happy Charles, missing for 8 years, and Megan Gallagher, who was murdered, also walked with Ashley's family. The Morans say they will continue the walks every year until Ashley comes home. We will have a full report in the coming days. Rachel May, APTN National News, North Battleford.
Welcome back. In recent weeks, APTN News and other news organizations have been reporting on comments made by Manitoba's Minister of Accessibility about an American Sign Language interpreter. Last week, it came to light that Nahanni Fontaine, the minister in question, had blocked every member of the APTN News team on social media. In a statement from the minister on Wednesday, Nahanni Fontaine said, quote, "Immediately upon learning that journalists were blocked on my social media account, I directed staff to reverse the decision. I value the role of the media in our democracy and remain fully open to interviews, questions, and respectful engagement." This week on the Truth in Politics panel, we're asking if it's appropriate for an elected official to block an entire media outlet. With us, as always, Jennifer Leywitz, the CEO of Pasqua Strategies, and Negon Sinclair, a columnist with the Winnipeg Free Press. Jennifer, Negon, great to have you with us. Jennifer, as mentioned, Manitoba's Minister of Families, Accessibility and Gender Equality, Nahanni Fontaine, blocked APTN reporters, some as far away as Halifax, digital media editors, even our lineup producer on social media. That move has now been reversed, though, with the minister saying she, quote, "Immediately upon learning that journalists were blocked on my social media account, I directed staff to reverse this decision." What do you make of all of this?
Oh, there's a lot of pieces that I can take away from that. The first is that it's always interesting when politicians say out loud that they don't actually manage their own social media. There's nothing that breaks the public's trust like hearing you don't run your own social media, which is very, very common in the political world. It's just one of those things that like nobody really wants to talk about. But I think it also is showing a real culture of what we're seeing with that minister behind the scenes. Like, what do you mean you blocked almost an entire network? It's one thing to block one person if they're going a little hard at you, especially because some journalists have been in instances where they've put politicians in the hot seat and those politicians don't like it. But this was very much like a coordinated effort, and it would have taken a long time. I assume they would have had to look for a list of some sort and then go one by one down the line. And I feel like any staffer that is working within communications of an elected minister should have a pretty general understanding of what to do and what not to do. And I'm having a hard time understanding or even believing that she didn't know about this, because any staffer that's ever worked in communications knows that your job could be on the line if you make a massive mistake like that. So I would be interested to hear what she's actually planning to do with those staffers that allegedly did this, and also to make sure it never happens again, because you're essentially trying to avoid accountability when you are blocking an entire news network from seeing your social media.
Negon, your take on whether politicians should be allowed to block members of the media from their social media?
It's amateurish, it's petty, and then on top of that, it's also irresponsible. The fact is that as media, our job is to talk about, reflect upon, and then also show the public what politicians are up to, and anything less than that is leading to corruption, to leading to a kind of politics that we may be seeing in areas like the United States, in the White House. And I've gotten quite a lot of criticism this week comparing situations in Manitoba to situations in the United States, but I feel completely confident in explaining this, saying what happens in the United States, what happens in Canadian media in Ottawa, it also happens in Winnipeg. When politicians decide to ban media from talking about what is happening in politics, whether that be in formal government, like Canadian institutions, or whether that be in First Nations organizations which claim to act like governments, or are governments in some cases, like First Nations bands and councils, for example. The reality is that you have a responsibility to the public to talk about what you are doing. and take responsibility for what you're doing. If you're an elected official who purports to represent people, citizens, then you have to report to those people. You have to be accountable to those people, and the venue for that is through media. It's not through social media, which is oftentimes unvetted. It's oftentimes through people who have very deep opinions, who aren't thinking or don't have any way in which they're being held accountable to an objective position. Most media outlets, even those who sometimes have overt political opinions, at least have some kind of ethics and boards in which they are adhered to. And so that's why, in many cases, banning reporters from talking about what politicians do and say in public settings has to be present, has to be something in which you make those reporters available to you.
Jennifer, there are a number of legal challenges that are ongoing to politicians who block members of the media, particularly on Twitter or X. Indigenous organizations are known for doing this as well. Should the public or journalists be concerned about this?
I think we should definitely be concerned, mostly because I am actually on the side of you should not be blocking opinions on social media if you are a recognized organization, Indigenous organization, or any type of government for that matter, or government official, mostly because as the digital age starts to evolve more and more, I look at social media as essentially like the town square. You know how there used to be jokes around how there was always that one person that would always be yelling in the town square about whatever issue of the day it used to be. Well, now we're all those people from the town square. We just do it collectively on social media because it's easier. But at the same time, I think, it does get a little bit concerning when we're seeing politicians or governments in any shape or form blocking comments or turning off comments or hiding comments, because they're essentially doing that as a way to shift the narrative and try to hide the narrative so that they can put their message out, not face any accountability or backlash from it, and essentially say, nope, this is just our piece. Everyone loves it, and you're not actually getting the full story because you're not seeing the public's reaction to some of those decisions. And I have seen it. I've seen the politicians do it. I know, there has been a minister federally that's been sued over doing this. Even on First Nations governance side, I've seen people turn off comments and stuff like that. At the end of the day, am not the one that's able to make that decision, but I don't agree with it.
Negon, as I kind of alluded there, this is nothing new for APTN News. We were banned for a long time by the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs when we reported on allegations against the previous chief. I believe the Free Press is also still banned by AMC. Is this kind of becoming par for the course?
I just want to clarify, talk about what Jen just said just a minute ago. No one is saying that opinions aren't okay, but opinions cannot dress up and pretend they are facts. They are not, people who have opinions who do shout out in a town square are not people who always are ones who you want to be depending in life and death situations on. They may have opinions that are highly problematic, that are partisan, that are also self-invested. Getting back to talking a little bit about the banning of reporters by organizations that at times purport to be governments, or in some cases are governments, like band councils and so on. When you ban reporters, media, and in this case, Indigenous media, you are banning people. You're banning the citizens who you say you are voted in by. Therefore, you can no longer say that you purport to represent people, that you represent your citizens. So by choosing whatever reason to ban media, and in some cases, I can certainly empathize with hurt feelings, with feelings of irresponsible journalism, and those media agencies, such as the Free Press, in which I have participated within my own workplace to hold people in that place, including the editors, including the people who made choices, to account, and we have talked about that publicly. We've also made efforts publicly to try to build relationships with the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, but if you continue to be banned, no matter what you do, then it's almost as if an organization is seeking to not talk about those things for other purposes. Or a simple way of thinking about it is that if you're not willing to let be accountable to the stories that you are telling, then others will make up the stories for you. And I think that's just simply irresponsible for organizations to not want to work with media who have objective ethics. They have boards in which they have to deal with and certain ways and accountability, particularly from readers. And you really have to take into account that media agencies are not your enemies. They are, in many cases, your friends, especially if you want to get your message out. And then now you've banned them, then don't be surprised if your message never gets out.
Negon, Jennifer, we'll have to leave it there. Of course, we're going to continue the conversation over on the Truth and Politics podcast. Thanks to you both.
Yeah, Miigwech. Thanks.
Time for one last quick break, but stick around. There's more to come. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Jimmy Moore tells us he drives past the morning train each day on his way to work, and then he drives past on his way home again. On this rainy day in Winnipeg, he hopes to find his wife waiting for him when he gets home again. Told that's a reference to Sheena Easton's chart topper 9 to 5. We appreciate the effort there. For the chance to be our next photo of the day, you can send your pics to share@aptn.ca. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 24 in Halifax, showers, and 25 in Fredericton. Cloudy and 21 in Kuujjuaq, 16 in Nain. 26 with showers in Montreal, rain, and 21 in Chibougamau. 23 with rain in Sault Ste. Marie, showers, and 28 in Ottawa. 25 in Thunder Bay, rain, and 23 in Sioux Lookout. Rain and 22 in Thompson, God's Lake, and Norway House. 27 under sunny skies in Winnipeg, Brandon, and Dauphin. 26 and sunny for Regina, Yorkton, and Saskatoon. 25 in Meadow Lake, 24 in La Ronge. In northern Alberta, 24 and cloudy for High Level, Fort Chipewyan, and Fort McMurray. 26 in Edmonton, 31 with the sun out in Medicine Hat. Sunny and 25 in Vancouver, 34 under sunny skies in Kamloops. Cloudy and 25 in Prince George, 19 with rain in Dease Lake. 16 in Old Crow, 20 in Whitehorse. 22 in Yellowknife, 25 in Norman Wells. 9 in Sax Harbor, 14 in Pawlatuck. 16 in Chesterfield, 17 in Whale Cove. 3 in Resolute, 5 in Clyde River. Reeling in a record breaker, some lucky fishers in BC now have quite the tale to tell.
We've probably done 3,500 plus fishing trips, and he shows up now. So where has he been for the last 12, 13 years that we've been in business on this stretch of river? So it's pretty neat how he's hidden out this long.
He estimates the sturgeon weighed around 700 pounds, and it took more than an hour to reel it in. It was tagged and released back to the wild. Ole. Well, that is all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Thursday. You can find more over on our website, aptnnews.ca. And be sure to join us back here tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. That's when Creason will have your first look at Friday's news. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy, Miigwech, thanks for being with us. Stick around, an encore presentation of Face to Face is next. Have a great night.